Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Fantasy Football Today, DFS. My name is Sia Nejad, and as always, I'm joined by Meg Shoup and Mike McClure. And just like the last couple of weeks, we are live on the Fantasy Football Today YouTube channel. If you're watching us, hit the like button. Meg, Mike, how we doing, Meg? I'm going to start with you. We've got a 13-game slate this week.
Yeah, no buys. So we are, loaded with riches. And, I have to say, Sia, that I am probably going to lean way more into the early only, afternoon only, because they are very, very full slates, right? You're not getting like a 2 or 3 game short slate. So yeah, Matt obviously has the amazing graphic up. We have a very full 1 and 4 p.m. only slate. So I'm probably going to lean more into that, but very, very fun slate. Hard to narrow it down, to be quite honest.
It's funny you say that because this was a week where that really stood out to me, Mike. I know Meg and I are the ones that are probably more than you, maybe like looking at the separate slates. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but when I always, before we do this show, I'll build out a main slate lineup. I'll build out an early slate and an afternoon slate. And because of the games on the afternoon slate, Mike, like the big time ones like Lions, Rams, Titans, 49ers is going to have a lot of fantasy implications. You might see Colts, Seahawks, obviously Panthers, Saints, we'll see low totals there. But the point I'm making is it was really easy for me to make lineups in the early slate that I really, really liked. So I just want everybody to know, I want to press upon everybody that I agree with Meg. This would be a good slate to play the main slate, of course, but maybe split them up and see what you're comfortable with. See what lineups resonate to you, because you just don't have to play the same slate that everybody else plays. But Mike, before we get into this 13-game slate, and we're going to have to race through some of these games, otherwise we'll be here for 2 hours. But with that said, when you looked at the slate from a main slate perspective, what did you see? What were your early thoughts?
Yeah, I would echo the 1 p.m. window is essentially like a normal slate. Just removing the 4 p.m., it's very close to a normal mid-season slate. So a lot of options, a lot of big spins in the afternoon as well between the Lions and Rams. And then, of course, CMC in the 49ers game. Seattle defense very likely to be popular, 14-point home favorites. I think it's a really interesting slate. There's a couple of extremely high total games, which I think is interesting. Lions Rams being the highest of the season that we will likely see all season in terms of total, but you still got Ravens Bengals, you still got Bills and Patriots. So a lot to sort through, a lot to pick from as well.
So I want to give a shout out before we get started to our contest winners from last week. Our contest is live. It'll be in the YouTube description, in the chat, but also in the podcast description as well. Skip Blaine won first place. Ron Dammit won second place. Jay-Z Tones, Tebow 904, Tiny Tots 80. That rounded out the top 5. Tebow reminds me, Meg, of just the idea that Phillip Rivers is playing a football game. Potentially. We'll see about Riley Leonard and all that stuff. Like, I mean, it would have been, I don't know, maybe a slightly bigger surprise, but you could have said like, oh, they're bringing Tim Tebow in. And I would have been like kind of just as shocked as the Phillip Rivers thing. So there's a bunch of names we could have brought out from the last 5 or 10 years. I don't want to we could go off on a rant on that. Let's just get into games. But that's, when I think of Tebow's name, I think, hey, maybe he could have come back too. Chargers and the Chiefs. Mike, I'm actually going to start with you here because this is your team. I don't know that there's a lot of fantasy goodness for this one. Chiefs 5.5-point favorite, 41.5-point total here. By the way, a lot of these games aren't super wind or precipitation affected, but they will be chilly. So just something to keep in mind. I don't think it's going to affect the games dramatically, but the good news is it doesn't appear that we have like a lot of wind in any of these games or a lot of precipitation. Mike, do you like anything in this game?
I really don't. I wasn't getting really anywhere in this game on the initial runs. I think that everyone's kind of priced up and appropriately, where they should be. Like, is there a scenario that the Kansas City can score 27 points in this game? Yeah, I think that the scenario exists. And like, can you one-off things like a big Xavier Worthy game at 4,500? Sure. I just don't think it's an overall environment that you want to get super heavy into. So I'm not getting anywhere in this game for now. I don't think that I'd have to really like up the number of lineups that I were playing to like really get there. Outside of what Big Cheesy is mentioning, the Kansas City defense, I could get talked into there. I know he won the game and he took off and ran a lot. Justin Herbert was not good in that game. The Chargers were not good in that game against the Eagles. So yeah, it would be Kansas City's defense would be the first thing in if I were to play something here.
I mean, I hate to say this. I'm not convinced that Justin Herbert's going to last the whole game. I mean, the way he was running, just taking hits on that hand and just taking hits in general, I mean, you're looking at, if you want to play the Chiefs defense, you might be looking at Trey Lance at some point in this game, which would obviously be a good thing for the defense, not so much the Chargers. Meg, I do want to move on to Ravens Bengals if there's nothing here, but do you have anything here? Because I can't imagine playing Justin Herbert in Kansas City. The running back situation between Amari and Hampton and Kamani Vidal is just crazy. You can't play any receivers for the Chargers at this point. I mean, it's just, musical chairs, and frankly, nobody's getting a ton of volume there. Kareem Hunt at 5,400. We're not going there. There's other running backs we might like. Are we just out on this game?
Yeah, pretty much. And the total tells us so compared to some other totals, again, even if you're only looking early only. So yeah, I think we can move on too.
Let's move on then, because speaking of Big Cheesy, thanks everybody for being in the chat. Josh is in here, Richie Smalls, Jason Pogwist, aka Pogo Picks, Grey Goose Hayes. Love everybody in here. And more importantly, as we bring up this Bengals-Ravens game, Big Cheesy says he likes Lamar's over 1.5 pass touchdowns at -130, and he doesn't mind Burrow over 2.5 pass touchdowns at +159. Meg, this is an exciting game, right? From a DFS standpoint, 52.5 point total. Bengals, we'll see about T. Higgins. I suspect he's not playing, which might give us some value down the line. If there's an update on that, please let me know. But Burrow, Jamar Chase, all makes sense. Lamar on the other side, Zay Flowers, likely Andrews. There's a lot to consider here.
Absolutely. And Josh L. Sports, he says, who do you need in best ball this week? I could really use Higgins to play. So I'm hoping somehow he does clear concussion protocol. But yeah, I have a lot of exposure like him to the Cowboys. So big Cowboys fan, this Washington girl this week and in the next 3 weeks, hopefully. So, but yeah, I love a lot in this game from the Bengals side. I do like Burrow stacks. Burrow Chase, again, historically has done well, put up a lot of yards on Thanksgiving night. And so in this game, on a main slate, I do have interest in Burrow stacks. I also have interest in not necessarily Lamar, obviously has been bumpy for him since he's been back, but it is still a very good matchup. It's been a tight end funnel going against the Bengals, and that, likely on Thanksgiving night, fumbled out of the end zone. And then last week we saw a tight end get there against the Ravens as well. So a tight end funnel, I'm going back to likely or Andrews, but I'll lean likely for the cheaper price tag. Looks pretty low owned. And Derrick Henry has a great matchup too. So if we can get the December Derrick Henry that we know and love, I'm leaning into the game stack of the Burrow passing side and Henry and likely on the Ravens side.
Mike, when I built out my 1:00 only slate, I took 2 players from this game, and it was Jamar Chase and Isaiah Likely. And then I just I went to, for my quarterback stack, I'll just, I'll let everybody know. I think, Meg, you're on this too. I went to Jackson Dart, and we can talk about that game in a little bit. But Zay Flowers is also very interesting to me. Big Cheesy pointing out, hey, Lamar's price, it's only 6,400. Obviously, Joe Burrow is 6,600. There's a lot to consider here. But for me, I'll take the chance, just like Meg, on Likely over Andrews. I may play a little bit of Zay Flowers. I'm playing Jamar Chase. I don't know that I'm going to speculate on any other Bengal receivers. If I were to, it'd probably be Mitchell Tinsley at 3,100. What say you on this game, Mike?
Love the game, first of all. I'll be stacking it up kind of on both sides. More interested in Burrow than Lamar personally. Have a little bit of interest in Lamar, but the reason I'll be off Lamar a touch will be because of the Derrick Henry exposure. I will have a ton of Derrick Henry. He ran about as poor as you could last week in terms of DFS score for the workload. I think that he will be right back to that again here. He only had 10 touches in the first matchup 2 weeks ago against this Cincy team. A lot of that was just the way the game played out. I expect a different result. I expect it to be more competitive. And I expect Derrick Henry at least 20 touches again in this game. So far too cheap. I think he lands in the end zone at least once, but probably twice in this matchup. So Derrick Henry, first player in a lot of lineups, like not just first player in from this game, first player in across the board for me. Love Likely, love Gesicki. It'll be popular, but I will have Joe Burrow, Derrick Henry, Isaiah Likely, and Mike Gesicki all in the same lineup. That'll be my preferred way to attack this game.
So in that lineup that you just mentioned, there's no Jamar Chase in that particular version of it.
Yeah, I won't be playing Jamar Chase personally here. I get it. I like him. The volume is clearly going to be there or should be there. I think that he will clearly be the focal point defensively, and they will make someone else beat them. We kind of saw that a little bit against Buffalo, and Burrow can absolutely sling it around. So it's part of the reason I like Burrow is because I'm down on Chase. I don't think that Chase is carrying Burrow to success. I think that Burrow is going to be able to find other options. So I will personally not be on Chase, but it's not that I don't like him that much. It's just there are other games that I really do like, and there are other wide receivers that I think are more attractive at their price points.
Meg, you had some follow-up.
Yeah, it's just funny that Mike said that. That was one of my shell lineups, was that exact Burrow stack. I did have Chase in that particular one, but then I found some pivots. Okay, if Higgins is active, could I get like a lower owned Higgins, take out Chase, and do Burrow, Higgins, likely Gesicki, Henry? So I had a similar shell, so it made me smile, and kind of lockstep with Mike there.
All right, yeah, I'll still be on Chase here. I don't think I'm gonna. If I was gonna stack up anybody, believe it or not, it would probably be Lamar. And people were talking about Lamar with both tight ends. Lamar to Zay. I mean, Lamar, Zay, and Likely. I could see it, especially on a 1 o'clock slate. I probably won't get there, but again, Chase and Likely are going to be my favorite there. Let's go to the Jets Jaguars. Not much to talk about here, in my opinion. There is one player I'm interested to see what y'all's opinions are. Obviously, we got a 41.5 point total, 13.5 point spread. Jaguars at home, and it looks like Brady Cook is going to be the quarterback. He's 4,300. Brady Cook being the quarterback, it feels like it takes out the upside of, not fully takes it out, but takes out the upside of Adonai Mitchell, John Mechie to some degree. I don't know what the Jets are going to do at Jacksonville. I mean, you kind of have to pass against Jacksonville. I don't know how that's going to look. I do like, for the reason of the spread being what it is, Mike, I like Travis Etienne, and I don't think I've ever uttered his name. Like this entire season, I've never said, oh, I like Travis Etienne this week. Kind of like him at 6,500. What say you, Mike, on this game?
Yeah, I'm probably not getting anywhere in it. If I would, I'm sure it would be Travis Etienne. I'm going to pull up. Yeah, Etienne, he's very much playable at the price point. I'll tell you, I don't love to always spoil and jump ahead. I will say in these two particular matchups, in these situations, I am far more likely to buy Derrick Henry at 7,300 and buy Saquon Barkley at 7,100 as opposed to 6,500 on Etienne.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to buy low on the true superstars personally. So it just doesn't leave a lot of room for Etienne because I can guarantee it'll be a 2 tight end week for me.
Okay.
So like 100% chance it's 2 tight ends every lineup. So.
Wow. Dropping all kinds of knowledge early in the show. Meg, your thoughts on this game? In or out on Travis? And is there anybody else you'd consider?
In on ETN. And I'm the same as you. I haven't played him much this year, but I think this is a great spot for him. Getting the workload as the Jaguars running back. So because I saw someone mention Tootin, and I believe he had a fumble last week. So I just want to stick with ETN at this price point. I don't think he's going to come with a ton of ownership either, but yeah, like ETN, Jaguars defense here, especially if Brady Cook is playing.
All right. Any thoughts on, we're not playing. I know we talked about Brenton Strange a little bit last week. Jacoby Myers is only 5,600. Meg, any thoughts on these receivers? Obviously Brian Thomas is playing in this game too, but are we just out on this?
Yeah. You could go there, but because, the Jets defense is obviously just washed at this point. So you could go there. I won't, because there's just too many other spots I want to get to. All
right. Let's get to another game then. This is interesting because we love playing the Arizona Cardinals. And that's not just we as a show. We everybody in the industry has been playing. Jacoby Brissett, I played him in the afternoon slate. You know what's interesting about separating these slates too is that I played a couple afternoon slate lineups, and it was rare because I submitted the exact same lineup, I think, in the $100 single entry and the $50 single entry, and both of them basically like doubled their money. So the 100 became 200, and I didn't even have the best lineup. I didn't have Christian Watson in that lineup, who you kind of needed to have if you wanted to win. But I did have Jacoby Brissett, Michael Wilson, and I had Trey McBride, which actually didn't do me any favors unless Jacoby could have hit Trey at the end of the game. That would have been great. But I'm relaying the point that when you have these smaller slates, some of these lineups make themselves. Like I feel like in that 4 o'clock slate last week, it's not that it was obvious, like you're an idiot if you didn't play Jacoby, but he was at least an obvious play. And if you're going to play him, you're going to play him with Michael Wilson and maybe with Trey McBride. And like everything else just kind of fell into place where I didn't even have the greatest lineup in the world, and I still made a decent amount of money. So I'm just impressing upon people that just play the main slate. You got to look at these other slates too, because you might be way more comfortable with the lineups that you see. Jacoby Brissett has to go against now Meg, the Houston Texans defense. Like just zero interest whatsoever. And by the way, he looked like he was kind of getting banged up last week, and I could see him getting banged up against this Houston Texans defense in Houston. I really don't want to play any of these guys for the first time. How about you, Meg?
Pretty much the exact same, looking ahead at the best ball schedule before 15, 16, 17, it's like if whatever team's playing the Texans, don't feel good about their projection. And so I'm out on the Cardinals this week. I have this Texans defense is absolutely insanely good, and I am not touching Cardinals. You could do a Stroud Nico stack on the other side. Woody Marks is looking to be pretty chalky. I think I'm going to make a stand there and fade him. So you could go to the other side, but again, we're in a situation where there is so much goodness. Even if you're narrowing it down and on short slates, there's so much fantasy goodness, high team totals, high game totals that I don't think I'm going to get to a lot in this game.
I wonder about, I'm looking at this team total. I wonder about, believe it or not, taking the Arizona team total under. I'm interested in that. I'm interested in the Raiders team total under, if you can get it at 13.5 against the Eagles, because obviously they're trotting out. I don't think they're trotting out Geno Smith. And as far as Woody Marks is concerned, we do have to monitor that and Nick Chubb in terms of like, hey, are they actually playing? It does look like Woody Marks is trending to playing. Maybe Nick Chubb as well with his rib issue. Mike, I like Woody Marks a lot if I see he's getting in full practices, because I just think he's going to get a ton of volume like he has been. Any thoughts on the Arizona side, and are you willing to play any Texans?
I'm willing to play a Texan. It would be Nico Collins for sure. I think that the price point and just where the number of big receivers we have on the slate, I think he will go a little overlooked. As far as Arizona, I think as much as I've loved Wilson, I had him 100% of lineups last week. I will probably be off this week. I think it is a much more difficult matchup against the Texans. And I do think the Texans will slow the pace of this game just a touch, a little bit. So I'll be kind of off Arizona. But again, the interest we had in Arizona a couple of those weeks were much smaller slates, had primetime games with huge, a lot of the superstar players on those slates. I think the opportunity cost is extreme on this slate, because if you're playing Arizona the way they're priced, like Wilson at 6,600, you're essentially foregoing. You're giving up either the Bengals game or the Lions game, or both, in order to do it. So I'll be completely out on Arizona.
Yeah, I see CJ Stroud at 5,200, and as tempting as that might be, and again, I'll probably be in on Woody Marks pending, injury news on him and Nick Chubb, frankly. But as much as I could see CJ Stroud at 5,200, I look at this next game, which is the Commanders and the Giants, and I'm like, okay, why would I spend 5,200 on CJ Stroud when I can get Jackson Dart at 5,600 or even Marcus Mariota at 5,000? I can't wait to talk about that game. But you watching and listening, you'll have to wait just a second. We got to hear a message from our partners.
This isn't just combat. It's cinema.
Ready or not, here I come. Let's go! Are you not entertained?
The new home of UFC, Paramount Plus.
We're back on Fantasy Football Today, DFS. Before we get into Washington and New York, there are some people. So this is the Fantasy Football Today YouTube channel, right? So there are people that are stumbling in here and they're like, week to week, this is what we get when we do it live. And they're like, oh, wait, they're not talking fantasy football like, redraft or dynasty. They're talking Fantasy Football Today, DFS. And so some people have never played DFS before. And I'm seeing that in the chat from at least one or two people. With that in mind, it's the same thing as redraft, except you just redraft every single week on DraftKings or FanDuel or wherever you do daily fantasy. And it kind of makes it fun. I mean, I don't want to compare the two, but you don't really have to worry about injuries going into the week. You kind of know where everybody stands and stuff like that. And it just gives you more bites at the apple week to week. So if you're interested in playing it, we're happy to answer your questions, whether you hit us up on Twitter or live on this show. But I can vouch for the fact that I actually think PGA DFS, because people are asking about that too, is wildly fun. And I think 1B to PGA DFS is NFL DFS, which I know some people listening are like, that's crazy talk. I'm just telling you, PGA DFS is really fun. All right, Commanders, Giants, 47.5 point total, I believe here. Giants, a short favorite here at home. Meg, I'll start with you, 2.5 point favorite. I'll start with you. I love both sides of the ball. I mean, particularly the Giants side, where I could stack this so many different ways. And frankly, I don't need a run back. I mean, Terry McLaurin's interesting to me at 5,400. We'll see what's going on with the tight end position with Washington, with Zach Ertz now out. But Jackson Dart, Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, Theo Johnson, all look good to me.
Yes, and I've told this story before, but exactly 11 Decembers ago, I got my first DFS win because I was angry with my Washington team. Little angry right now about how bad this defense is, because this defense made JJ McCarthy look like Joe Montana last week. So I'm going to go back to playing the quarterback against the defense, this terrible Washington defense. And I love Jackson Dart this week. And like you said, you can stack them up however which way, certainly single, double, triple stack, because most of his stack options are cheap. I personally like Dart, Slayton the best, maybe adding in a Theo Johnson, because tight ends can certainly get there against Washington. So absolutely love that stack on the Giants side, unfortunately.
Yeah, Mike, I love it too. Do you love it as much as we love it?
I do. And I'll play Jackson Dart by himself. I don't need a handcuff with Jackson Dart at this price. I think he runs quite a bit in this one. To be honest with you, I would be completely stunned if Jackson Dart didn't score 22, 23, all the way up to 30 in this game. I think he's definitely in the 20s. I like Dart. I'll be playing him again. I'll be playing him without a handcuff unless it's Theo Johnson in one of the two tight end spots. But like looking at lineups that I like here, with like Jackson Dart, I can play Henry, Barkley, Nakua, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like all those guys can fit in Jackson Dart lineups extremely easily. It'll be popular for good reason, but it's the best route at quarterback if you want to grab exposure to multiple high scoring games.
So, and I agree with you. You don't like it's almost like, remember the cheat sheet last week? I had Josh Allen solo because I didn't think I needed to stack him. Here, I think it's more appropriate to stack because at least the volume is going basically to one of three guys. The reason I like Theo Johnson the best probably is because he's 3,500, so it just makes the total value or cost of the stack super low. Meg, Slayton is really interesting because I love Wan'Dale, but he's 5,900. If he was 5,200, he'd be like such a smash play. He's still a great play at 5,900. Darius Slayton is interesting though because I don't know how many yards Jackson Dart's going to throw for, but if he hits some deep shots, it's probably going Darius Slayton's way. Real quick commentary there. And also, are you playing Terry McLaurin?
Exactly what you said. We've seen a lot of, receivers getting that long A-dot deep shots against this Washington defense. So that's what makes me like Slayton so much combined with the price point. So yeah, that is the exact reason I like Slayton. Great matchup for him. And then, yes, Terry is the run back now, sadly, without Zach Ertz. It's really, Terry and Debo. And, we saw 2 games ago in a very difficult matchup against the Broncos with Mariota that Terry looked great, even on limited, routes run. So I really like Terry and his price point as a run back here.
I will point out that Chris Rodriguez is only 4,900 and you can run against this defense. I thought Chris Rodriguez popped up with an injury issue. Oh, we have it here. Oh, thank you, Matt. Okay. He had a groin issue and maybe that's nothing. Maybe that's just a rest day for him on Wednesday. But if he's a full go and full practice and the coach speak is right, I mean, Chris Rodriguez at 4,900, he's not going to catch any passes. That'll be Jeremy McNichols in a negative game script if that's what happens. But I do think Washington got away from Chris Rodriguez early last week. And that was like, that may as well have been Ron Rivera on the sideline. Like just the silliest coaching of all time. I say that with knowing that I had Chris Rodriguez over 10.5 rushing, got to 10, but like he was averaging 8 yards a carry and they just like went away from him. It was just completely silly. So I think he's interesting if you need a cheap option at running back at 4,900, because I do think he's live for 1 or 2 touchdowns. He's a really good runner, and I think they are going to lean into the run a decent amount until they can't anymore. If this gets away from them, we'll see about that. But yeah, love the Jackson Dart thing. Mike, any more on this game that we need to talk about, or do we move on?
I'll still just mention I'll play Wan'Dale Robinson, and I'll have a Jackson Dart double with Theo and Robinson if they're both in. But yes, I would say that I'm not just only playing dart solo, but I will play a lot of dart solo just because it allows me to get everything else I want.
And for people listening to the podcast and that don't get the benefit of this chat, I do want to mention that Mike typed in, because he talked about 2 tight end lineups, and I know a lot of people were reacting to that. He kind of listed some of the tight ends that he's going to play in 2 tight end lineups. At least, Mike, that's how I interpret this. Gesicki, Likely, Parkinson, Theo Johnson, Harold Fannin, he says, are all under 4K. Very clear 2 tight end build again for you this week. So go ahead, Mike.
I would say my additional comment on that would be it's a rare week where I would legitimately be playing 3 of them if I could.
Yeah.
So when I look at lineups here, like if I could get is the third wide receiver spot, like I would play 3 of those guys to get the quarterback stack I want with the 2 elite receivers and either 1 top end running back, either being CMC or Gibbs, or the 2 of Barkley and Henry. Like, yeah, I would play 3 if I could.
So good question from Richie Smalls here. And I'm so glad to see his name in this chat, because I seem to recall when we were doing shows live the last couple of years, Richie Smalls, among a lot of you others, were in the chat. And I do realize that people are just kind of finding out again that this show is live now, because it hadn't been for 3 months. So Richie, welcome back to the chat. He asks, Mike and Meg, I don't know how much cash you play, but we understand the question. Is Jackson Dart a cash game lock? Those are his words, not mine. But Mike, he's a cash game guy for you?
Certainly. Will be the most popular on the slate by a mile, but warranted.
Meg?
Yeah, I don't really play cash, but I think he's the cash game quarterback for sure. Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
All right, let's move on to Cleveland, Chicago, still in the 1 o'clock slate here. Bears a pretty big favorite, -7.5. Let's see. Roma Dunze still limited on practice on Wednesday. Shedeur Sanders had a nice game against the Titans, but this isn't the Titans. This is in Chicago. We'll see what happens here. Mike, I'm not super interested in this game. If DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai weren't splitting carries, I would love, well, actually I wouldn't against the Browns. I would maybe look at one of those running backs. But this is the Cleveland defense. I'm not really interested in Quinshon Judkins on the other side. There's not much interest in here from me. Mike, how about you?
I'm going to speculate heavily on Judkins. It'll be a contrarian look for sure this week, but I do like Judkins in this matchup. I don't think Chicago is good defensively. I think they're fine defensively and improving in the passing game. And I think the conditions overall will be difficult for Shedeur in the passing game. But I think Judkins is going to go right back to a heavier workload. I think he's going to touch the ball 20 times in this game. And I think he will continue to get a few looks in the passing game. And he's still extremely electric when he gets the ball in his hands. And I think this matchup to me profiles as one where he can have a huge chunk play or two. So I will play a little Judkins. He is going to be one of my top backs. It could go very poorly for me, just the way I tend to play DFS. I will be betting on Judkins pretty heavily this week.
So speaking of volume, Meg, I do want to lay this out, because when we're looking at the prop market and we're looking at rush attempts, so we're not looking at yardage, we're looking at rush attempts, because Mike, you mentioned you're looking at 20 carries for Judkins. So top on the list on this slate is Saquon Barkley, projected to get 20.5 carries. Not all books have Saquon props out quite yet. Derrick Henry is next in that 18.5 range. Some places even have him 19.5 at plus money. Jonathan Taylor is next, also in the 19.5 range. Then James Cook, 19.5, and then Quinshon Judkins, who's 18.5. So Mike, you're right. It looks like Quinshon is going to get the same volume that we'll probably see from guys you like as well, like Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley. So, yeah, I mean, it's a good call out at 6,300. Meg, are you playing Quinshon, and is there anybody else you're interested in?
Quinshon is in my player pool, but I mean, I am trying to narrow down each position because I have so many players written down, which again leads me back to why I'll do more 1 p.m., 4 p.m. only. Yep. He's in my player pool, but gosh, there are just so many other running backs on this slate that I love. I don't know that I'll actually get to them, but do understand Mike's case for it. And so frustrating with the Bears running backs because we saw Pollard go off in this matchup last week, but with them a split role, I won't get there either.
Okay. And I do want to point out when I'm just looking strictly at rushing yards, and I say this because Mike, you sung the praises of Derrick Henry at 7,300. He leads the pack or in that 90 range, next to Saquon around 85, and then there's a pretty big drop down to James Cook there to in that 80 range, and then Christian McCaffrey, who we'll get to in the low 70s. I guess we can move on from this game. Let's go to the Bills and the Patriots. This is a high total, 50.5. Bills on the road, favored by 1.5. I think this one is really interesting in the sense that, Meg, I don't even know who I want to play here. And it's a really high total. Like, there's other games I'm interested in. I can see arguments for a lot of different players. I just don't find myself getting there really with anybody. What say you?
Very similar. It's like I could see, so many range of outcomes for this game and the way it plays out. Over, under, is it more of a run heavy game script? Is it more going through the air? I just could see so many scenarios and range of outcomes that I'm having a difficulty narrowing it down. I do love both quarterbacks. We know both quarterbacks. I mean, it's kind of like Josh Allen feels like Josh Allen Jr. here facing off against each other. And I know they didn't get there fantasy wise in that Sunday night game, but I can make a case for how they could, and it'd be a very, interesting game environment from the passing game. But then, I definitely like Travion Henderson. James Cook, I love, but he struggled in this matchup earlier in the season. So I'm struggling too. What I do like is, Stephon Diggs. He, revenge game, did well going back to Buffalo, with the AFC East, title still up in the air or still to play for. I think Patriots lock the AFC East with a win here. I do still like Diggs at his price point in this matchup. So of everything I am considering, my summary is I'm considering a lot in this game, but my favorite pieces are probably Diggs and then Travion Henderson, actually. And Kincaid, sorry.
Mike, is there a world where, because I'm not going to get to Bills, I'm not playing James Cook. Let me know if you are. I'm not playing him at 8K against this rush defense. Not getting to Josh Allen, even though I'm not going to pretend that's a bad play. I'm just not getting to Josh Allen. The only one that I would consider, and I don't even know that I'd want to stack him with anybody, is Drake May at 6,700. Is there a world where you'd play Drake May solo, or any Patriots, frankly?
Nope. No chance. No chance for me personally. You look at the slate's just too big, right? I wish this game were on an 8, 9, 10 game slate, but at 13 with the guys that are on the slate, it's just too difficult for me to get there. We may get another snow game for Buffalo. I know the game is in New England. It's going to snow Sunday morning. Temps will be very cold, freezing at best. We're going to have some wind. It's going to be a running game. The Patriots are going to run the football. It's what the Bills are going to set up and essentially invite and force. I do think it's still a timeshare. I don't think at all the current price points, again, for New England, they've had a lot of success this season. The price points are starting to reflect it. Josh Allen is Josh Allen. You can play Josh Allen if you want to. It's totally fine. No idea who you want to stack him with here. I probably wouldn't even attempt to stack him with anyone. I would just bet on Josh Allen individually if I had to play it. But the price points are mature enough, and there's so many other good options here. I think it'll be a lot of running in this game, and I'm personally not going to participate in it.
And just so everybody knows, the rushing attempts props for Travion Henderson or Ramondre Stevenson are exactly the same. Kind of like Kyle Monungai and DeAndre Swift. Theirs are both, I think, 12.5 last time I checked. Travion and Ramondre are both slated to get 10.5. The line is 10.5 rush attempts. And Travion just has like a handful more yards than Ramondre in terms of the rushing yards projection. So Mike is absolutely right that we're talking about a split backfield there. All right. Well, I think we can move on. Listen, I know this is a high total game, but I just don't see a scenario where we're playing a ton from this game. So I don't want to waste anybody's time. Let's go to the Raiders-Eagles, which a much lower total. But Mike, like you said, you liked Saquon Barkley in this game. Is that your only play? Anybody else you're interested in? Talk to me about Saquon.
Yeah, it'll be the only play for me. But I will be back on Saquon again here. I think that, again, the price points just kind of caught up with it. The Eagles have lost again, and he finally got back to a good workload. They probably should have won that game. 20 touches there. We saw him run a lot better. I think they continue to go back to it, though. I think that when they had a lot of success, it was still continuing to feed them. It's very clear that Jalen Hurts is not great in the passing game right now. I do like for the overall success that they get this spot again, but it's back home in Philly, and the crowd is not going to enjoy any sort of poor performance from Jalen Hurts. And I think a way to kind of mask that a little bit early is to feed Saquon and go establish that run again against a team that they're definitely better than. What else can I say? Yes, Saquon hasn't had the year that he did before. Looked great again last week, though. And he's $2,000 cheaper than guys that he used to be priced with.
Yeah, I like the idea of taking some live overs on Saquon too. I mean, I could see this Raiders defense being the somewhat stout rush defense for a little bit. The game gets away from them and they start wilting and maybe like kind of giving up a little bit. Not literally, but you know what I mean. I think Saquon Barkley eventually gets there, like the number at 7,100. Interesting comment from Big Cheesy, because he says he likes Tank Bigsby in a blowout. So I actually looked for Tank Bigsby anytime touchdown props yesterday, and I couldn't find them. I don't think they were out yet, but I absolutely like that. So I'm not for DFS necessarily, but he's only 4,600. If you want to take that chance, feel free. But I think that's a really interesting comment. Just so everybody knows, I also looked at the Raiders team total under 13.5 at -130. That I looked at DraftKings for. Maybe you get a better price somewhere else, but I don't see the Raiders beyond Kenny Pickett scoring a ton of points. Meg, are you in on Saquon, and are you in on anything else in this game?
Very in on Saquon. Fully agree with both of you guys on that. Think it'll be very run heavy for him. He looked great last week, and I am going back to Saquon this week. So yeah, lockstep there. Don't think I'm really interested in much else in this game, though.
Yeah, another prop I was considering was Jalen Hurts under pass attempts at 28.5. My worry is that the game was so bad last week that Sirianni's like, oh, we're going to come out and pass to prove to everybody we can still do that. And so that has me worried a little bit, but yeah, looking at Jalen Hurts unders a little bit as well. All right, we got to get to the 4:00 games. That was a quick pace, kind of quickish pace, but we're going to stay just as quick because we still got to get to our cheat sheets as well in our top 3 at each position. But we have 5 4:00 games to cover, a couple of which are very intense when it comes to some of the fantasy prowess. We'll cover it all right after this message from our partners.
Well, you need your sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
Packers, Broncos is the next game. It's at 4:25. All these games, I guess, at 4:25. 42.5 point total. We got, or 40.5 point total. This has gone down a little bit. 2.5 point spread. Packers favored on the road. Meg, I actually have no interest in this game. I mean, you could make the argument for RJ Harvey, but I'm not really willing to do that against the Green Bay Packers defense. Josh Jacobs, 6,900. Christian Watson, normally at 5,500, I'd say, hey, that's decent. But this is the Denver defense. It's on the road in Denver. All the other receivers appear to be healthy. I'll have to check in on Golden and Wicks, but they appear relatively healthy. On the Broncos side, we might have some injuries. I believe Pat Bryant or Troy Franklin, one of those two, popped up with an injury yesterday. But Meg, I'm out on this game.
Pretty much the exact same. I did have Harvey on my list, but similar to Judkins, I just don't know that I'm going to get to them. Too many other running back spots I love. So I'm pretty much out on this game as well.
Mike?
I'm out on the game overall. It's certainly out on skill position players. I could get to the defenses, but it would be Green Bay's defense before Denver. Green Bay at 2,800, I think, is for me personally, it's extremely interesting in the sense of allowing me to kind of jam in what I want to jam in. So I do like Green Bay's defense at 2,800.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think we need to spend any more time on this game. I really don't. Again, I'm not playing the running backs. I'm just not interested in the game environment. The total's coming down. It was already one of the lower totals of the week. It's coming down even more. So let's get to the next game, which is also a pretty low total here. We'll go to the Colts and the Seahawks. This one at 42.5, but the Seahawks favored by 2 touchdowns. I mean, I don't even know if there's an update. We know Rivers is coming back, but Riley Leonard appears to be healthy. So is Rivers actually getting activated? I'm sure he probably is, but I don't want any part of this Colts team, including Jonathan Taylor. The question becomes, Meg, do you play Kenneth Walker at 5,600 or JSN at 8,600? The implied total for Seattle is over 28 points, just over 28 points. So they got to get to 28. They'll probably get to 35. They'll probably get to 35, honestly. And like, how do they go about doing that? I feel like that question leaves obviously JSN in play, maybe Sam Darnold. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, that is the tough thing, because we'll get to another game that I think will be a blowout, and I really like just that one side. Yet I'm not really getting to a lot for the one side here on the Seahawks. I've been playing Kenneth Walker, and he's just not getting there because he's not getting into the end zone. JSN, obviously, you always can play, but of course he's priced up with all these other receivers in really good game environments. So I think that's probably why I'm not getting to JSN as much, because the other receivers that are expensive that I like are in really, really good game environments. So don't think I'm going to get to a lot here, honestly. And it feels weird, but I don't think I will.
No, I mean, it doesn't feel weird at all. I mean, I kind of get it. Again, it's a 13-game slate, so we can't live everywhere. Mike, JSN, Kenneth Walker, any interest? By the way, before you answer that, it was Pat Bryant who popped up with a hamstring injury that we'll have to monitor for for the Denver Broncos. Mike, go ahead.
So it's never fun fading JSN. He's probably going to approach 100 yards somehow, some way. Still, he's probably going to find the end zone. I'm still going to fade in favor of some of the other elite receivers on the slate. I don't know that Seattle will have to do too much in this game. It's a train wreck for Indy, and it's going to continue that way. It's going to rain during this game, and I think that matters. I think it'll be very ugly at times, potentially. Like, the last thing the Colts, a team that's based indoors in a dome in ideal conditions, needs is to play outdoors in a hostile environment, which this is one of the more difficult environments in all of the NFL to go play in. The last thing they need is wet conditions in the rain. And I think that's what they're going to get. So for me, it would be Seattle's defense would be first thing in if I had to play something. If you want to speculate on running backs, I still do believe Seattle in this kind of game would be very much like New England, very much like some of the other situations where it would be very difficult to pick between Charbonnet and Walker. I am likely to just simply be out on this game, knowing full well that it's very likely that Seattle not only scores 28 points, like there's a scenario where they have the most points at the end of the entire slate of any team.
Yeah.
Like that scenario is very real. I still am going to look elsewhere. It would be Seattle defense and kind of move on.
I really like the idea, Meg, of if we're playing the 4:00 slate separately, of just taking a chance on Kenneth Walker or Zach Charbonnet to give us the salary we kind of need for some of these other games that we're going to get to. Because even on the main slate, I mean, Kenneth Walker at 5,600 could be we don't know what the split's going to be really, but like Kenneth Walker could be a great play. I mean, he could have 13 rushing attempts, 82 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he's 5,600. So I feel like both of those guys should at least be in the conversation, right?
Right. And especially, like you said, on the 4 p.m. only slate, especially 4 p.m. only slate, and giving you some salary relief. So I like that call a lot.
And if you're going to pay up for defense, and I'm so mad I didn't do this 2 weeks ago, because remember 2 weeks ago I was big on Kenneth Walker, but I didn't play the Seattle defense, and it was Seattle playing Brosmer and company, and they kind of broke the slate. You actually had to have that defense, and now you're going up against Riley Leonard or maybe Phillip Rivers. Either way, I mean, Seattle at home, this could be another one of those spots where even if they don't score all the touchdowns, like the defense, I'm saying, like, they could still be worth a ton of points. So something to consider in terms of paying up if you want to do that. Let's go to the Panthers Saints. And we still got into Lions, Rams, and Titans, Niners, which those are 2 games I really want to talk about. But Panthers Saints, I don't know how interesting this one is. It's a 40.5 point total. Panthers favored by 2.5. Mike, I could look at Tyler Shoup and be somewhat intrigued here at 4,900. I kind of get that argument on this slate. I'm not sure I'm willing to do it. On the other side of the ball, I'm actually not really interested in Rico Dowdle at 6,600. I'm pretty much out on this game, Mike.
Yeah, I'm going to be out on this game, so I'm going to elect to disrupt the show and use my time to go back to the previous game. Because one thing that I think is very important that I forgot to mention, Seattle, extremely likely to win this game, right?
Yeah.
The Rams in a very tough matchup, physical matchup against the Detroit Lions. Those two teams are 10-3 at the top of the NFC West. The next week is when they play. It's the most important game of the season for both of those two teams is next week. It's on a short week. It is on Thursday Night Football. Seattle, keep in mind, if they have this game in hand comfortably, just expect very conservative game plan in the second half. Certainly look to potentially avoid any sort of injury. They're having a phenomenal season. The most important game of Seattle's season is next Thursday night against the Rams. Rams will be coming off that, again, that tough game against the Lions. So just consider the fact that Seattle may, if everything's in hand against a very beat up Colts team in the weather, they may pull back in the second half of this game.
Totally makes sense. Yeah, I like that call quite a bit. All right. But
no interest in the Saints. Sorry for backtracking. Yeah, no interest in that game.
Meg, any interest in this one?
No, I'm saying no interest in the Saints game.
Yeah, again, I don't think we need.
I'll say one thing: 4 p.m. only. Chuba Hubbard got 17 carries last week. 4 p.m. only, not main slate, because I just think there's too much opportunity cost on the main slate. But 4 p.m. only, salary saver running back and like a 3 running back build potentially. I would maybe look to Chuba Hubbard because we don't know what the split will be truly.
I love that call. And honestly, when I was doing the afternoon slate last week, I wish I had taken some, because I remember I submitted this same exact lineup in the 2 big entries I had. And I wish I had played Blake Corum in one of them. And it's a similar situation. Granted, he had a much better opportunity, Blake Corum did, than maybe the Panthers do on the road here. But I mean, kind of the same thing where the quote backup running back kind of looks just as good, if not better than the starter right now. And it could absolutely soak up a ton of yardage and maybe a touchdown or two. So let's move on to the next one. I mean, this is a high flyer. This is an extremely high total. We referenced it at the beginning of the show. Mike, I'll start with you. Lions, Rams. I don't think I need to kind of list off the names here. There's too many to do it. So I'll just start with you. What do you like in this game?
A lot. I like Puka Nacua, obviously. I like Amon-Ra St. Brown quite a bit. And Jahmyr Gibbs. I know that this is a spot. The Rams are good. It's a road environment. It's a neutral site environment, essentially. There's no home field in LA, particularly when you get some exciting fan bases like this. So closer to neutral site than anything. You obviously, you get the emotional spot when you've got the 2 quarterbacks in the sort of revenge narrative at this point. I know it's a kind of a long-standing revenge narrative at this point, but it's certainly something they always look forward to. It's also a desperation spot a little bit on the side of the Detroit Lions. They need to win games here to find themselves in the playoffs. I think that they have success offensively, and I think they're bad enough defensively that there's just no way the Rams aren't going to score on them. So it's just going to kind of lead itself to a high-scoring environment. So I like a lot. I'll be prioritizing Puka and St. Brown over JSN, over Jamar Chase. I want both of them in as many lineups together as I can. I'll play Gibbs where I can. I will kind of default for Barkley and Henry as much as I can because of price, but I will still get to Jahmyr Gibbs. And then the other one that I will be playing in tournaments is absolutely Jameson Williams.
Yeah. Jameson Williams, 6,100. Meg, when I was trying to make lineups, particularly for the main slate and the afternoon slate, I found myself not getting to Amon-Ra St. Brown because it's just hard because a lot of these guys are really expensive. I mean, Gibbs is 8,800. Amon-Ra is 7,900. I did find myself getting to Jameson Williams a lot. No, I haven't made a ton of lineups yet, but Jameson Williams seemed like an easy ceiling play to plug in there in a game like this. Did you find yourself getting to Jameson a lot as well? And which of the Lions do you think you're actually going to play when you consider price point? Then we'll get to the Rams.
Yeah, Jameson Williams has always been one of my favorite players to play in DFS and draft and best ball and bet on ladders. So yes, I definitely in early builds found myself going to Jameson Williams off of Amon-Ra with that salary savings. So like Mike said, like you said, I like both sides of this game. I like the passing game for both sides. I think you could stack it up however which way. I'll probably lean for the savings more and do the Goff side a little more with a Puka or Devontae Adams run back, but you have to like both passing games and the passing games for both sides in this game. So like you guys, I like a lot, and that's what makes it really, really difficult.
Mike, how about a Goff? Because Goff will have likely a trailing game script. How about Goff, Jahmyr, Jameson without Amon-Ra. Would you be willing to do that?
I don't mind it. I'll tell you the thing that I'll still do though is I'll just not stack with Goff. Like Goff, he can get there. Like I'd rather play Jackson Dart and just Jackson Dart's rushing upside can probably still outscore Jared Goff in a lot of scenarios. Particularly if you want to play Gibbs, because Gibbs, while we think of him as the elite player in the passing game, he's still very good in the running game.
Yeah.
And can very, very likely have 2 rushing touchdowns in this game. So I'd rather not play Goff. Like I'm not going to play Goff. I'll tell you that now. I won't play Goff. I'll play Jackson Dart and save a little bit of money in those lineups and spread out my exposure just a little bit. The only other comment I should make on this game is I am actually quite worried about Davante Adams' hamstring.
Interesting.
I think it's a big deal at his age. At 32, it's a different thing for a receiver. Like at this spot, he does kind of need explosiveness to still separate the way he does, and even in red zone situations. I don't think they want to get him hurt. I'm not saying he won't play. I think he will suit up. I think he will be active. I think his snaps could be limited. I don't think you're going to see the deep go routes at times that we've seen this season. I expect a lot of volume to Puka Nacua in this game, just a ton. And I'd be very cautious with Davante.
What's interesting is when you look at his yardage prop, by the way, this week, because I looked at it, is around 60, 61 yards, which seems really low. But then you go back and look, and he's just not getting targeted downfield. Or if he is, he hasn't been efficient with it. I mean, I understand he's a great receiver, but a lot of that stuff that he's catching is, the goal line stuff, the red zone stuff, as everybody knows. He's not really breaking the bank from a receiving yard standpoint, I think people would be surprised if they looked at the box scores for him. Meg, go ahead.
Yeah, I hear what Mike's saying with the Dart comparison. And I think because I'm going to play so little of full slate and so much more of 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. only, I really like a Goff double with what you said. Goff, Gibbs, Jameson Williams, Fade Amon-Ra, maybe, and I respect Mike's thoughts on the worry about Davante Adams, maybe then run it back with Puka, and you have it because it's an expensive stack. This game is an expensive stack, but that might be a cheaper way by taking out, the Stafford side of it and going the Goff side of it and taking out Amon-Ra and doing that in the 4 p.m. only. That's something I'm considering.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I think we're not playing Con Williams or Blake Corum, I assume, but we are playing Jahmyr Gibbs, right? Blake Corum's 4,800. We're not doing that. Meg?
I'm not going back this week to that now.
Okay. By the way, Matt, I don't know if you can put the contest link in the chat, but we do have a lot of people watching just across Twitter, but also on YouTube. If you can put it in the YouTube chat, it's a $5 contest to sign up. We get 200 people in the contest and pay out the top 15. It'll all be in the YouTube description and the podcast description as well. But if we can maybe, I don't know, we might not be able to, but if we can put the link in the chat for people to click on it now, that would be great too. Titans, 49ers. 44.5 point total. 49ers a pretty big favorite in this one. I mean, a lot of fantasy goodness with the Niners coming off a bye at home. Mike, I'll start with you again. Christian McCaffrey's 9K. Brock Purdy's only 6,200. And then the receivers, Juwan Jennings, 5,200. Ricky Pearsall, 5,100. Kittle, 5,400. Mike, what do we like in this one?
Honestly, if this were a normal slate, because this is not a normal slate. We've talked at length now about how big this slate is. If it were a normal slate, I'd have quite a bit of interest. I'd probably even be playing some Brock Purdy lineups. I don't think I'm getting to this game. CMC would be the first choice, the logical choice. I question what the true workload will actually be like in this game. I want to think that they are all systems go and he's going to touch the football a ton and that's just kind of how it'll be. I don't know at this point. Like, yes, they've got an outside shot at winning the division still. And which is, we think about that division, right? It's 10-3 Rams, 10-3 Seahawks. Seahawks are going to win this week against the Colts. The Rams potentially in a big fight here against the Lions. And then they play each other next week, short week on the road in Seattle. There's going to be some separation between the two right there. Niners have one of the easiest schedules remaining in the NFL. I just wonder if they are more worried about a playoff run considering the injuries that they've had. If we do see, if it's out of hand and CMC doesn't get his early, if we see some limited touches in the second half. I think it's at the point in the season where we may. So I'm going to play Gibbs in the shootout before I play CMC. And then I'm playing Barkley and Henry so much that there's just not room for CMC for me. So because I don't want to play CMC, I don't want to play anything in this game.
It's this conversation, Meg, that leads
Not
us
that
down.
I don't like CMC, by the way. I think he's fine, right? It's just that's my path to how I can't get there.
And Meg, this is exactly why we say, hey, guess what? You don't have to worry about CMC because you can play the 1 o'clock slate and then worry about CMC in the 4 o'clock slate because you don't have to worry about the guys that Mike likes on the 1 o'clock slate. And I cannot impress this upon people enough to try that out because it makes it really difficult on this slate. Meg, I think I'm willing to play CMC potentially over Jahmyr Gibbs. I think I'm willing to fade Jahmyr Gibbs in some lineups or maybe fade him more than the field. And try to hope that game goes a different route, maybe with Goff stacks and through the passing game or what have you. Maybe David Montgomery steals some touchdowns. 28.5 point implied total. I could absolutely see coming off the bye though, Brock Purdy going off a little bit because he's not right. And just like the Jalen Hurts thing that I said earlier, like maybe the coach wants to make sure he gets his confidence up. And here come the Titans to do that. Doesn't mean I'm playing a Brock Purdy stack. I get the argument to do it. Are you in on CMC and rate CMC versus Jahmyr Gibbs in terms of your willingness to play them?
Oh, that's a good question. I am in on CMC. I'm in on the whole 49er side. Coming off the bye, I get that there's going to be likely no pushback, but coming off the bye, I really like the 49ers here. Just an excellent matchup for them all around. Purdy stacks, which can include CMC. And I've seen some people in chat mention Pearsall. That could be a very contrarian play. He hasn't been gaining there, but he certainly could in this matchup. And he's going to, on the main slate, be like 2% owned. And then even on a 4 p.m. slate where then it's harder to get contrarian plays, right? Then he could still be a low owned play on the 4 p.m. slate. So I really like playing the contrarian angle there and doing like a Purdy, Pearsall, Kittle on the 4 p.m. slate, or even do like a 49ers onslaught on the 4 p.m. slate and add him in. As far as Gibbs versus CMC, I honestly like both. I would like to find a way 4 p.m. only to play both, and then maybe play that like a cheaper running back in the third spot or something along those lines. We talked about that with a couple options in the prior game. So it's tough to say, one or the other because I am playing so few of the full slate contest.
So the thing about if you like the 49ers stacks, this is what I'll say, and then we can move on to our cheat sheets and top 3 at each position. But the Titans just put up 31 points on the Cleveland Browns. I'm not suggesting the Titans are good, but I am suggesting that maybe there's a range of outcomes where the implied total for Tennessee, which is 16, which isn't crazy low. It's not like Raiders low or some of the other teams we've talked about. There's a scenario against, I know the 49ers coming off a bye, but it's not a healthy defense still. Scenario where the Titans actually pushed back and scored 20 points or 23 points. That's obviously not outside the range of outcomes, in which case we might see all these guys on the field and passing and doing all those things through the fourth quarter. So I think that would be the primary argument, in which case I'd actually want to run it back with somebody like a DK, because I feel like if they're going to have success, I think it's probably going to be through the passing game, through DK, probably not through Pollard or Spears or Okonkwo or Van Jefferson. Any thoughts, Meg, on DK running it back? Because we haven't really talked about a lot of cheap options yet on this slate at the receiver position.
Right. I had 2 cheap receivers written down. One was Slayton, who we discussed, and I said will be a part of my dart stacks. And the other was DK in this game, because again, I like kind of 49er onslaughts or 49er stacks, and I think he's the cheap play to run it back with. So that's funny you said that, and DK would be the one.
Mike, on this entire slate, this is kind of a troubling question right now. Maybe you don't have it up, but the cheap receiver option, we know you're doing the 2 tight end builds. Were there any cheap receivers that came up that were in that mid 4K range or below, or even high 4K range or below that you were like, all right, these guys are going in my lineups?
Yes. And one of them I would even potentially speculate, even if he's not a clear-cut starter, and that's Mitch Tinsley. I know that he didn't get any run or action last week against Buffalo. He clearly did previously. I don't know that T. Higgins is going to play in this game, unfortunately.
Right.
I was really shocked that he came back in the game. He took a few hits in that Buffalo game, and I think it was just a product of, season still potentially a scenario that the season was on the line at that point in that game. And he came back in, but he was very clearly in the concussion protocol in that game. I don't know, considering it'd be a second concussion in 4 weeks, essentially. I don't know that Higgins goes in this game.
Right.
And
I agree.
If he doesn't, Tinsley at 3,100. But even so, as physical and as hated as these two teams are, if you have a lineup you love, I wouldn't mind playing him at 3,100, even if we get that T. Higgins is still active. So I would consider leaving Tinsley in. Other cheap receivers that would stand out, I would consider going back to Adonai Mitchell, even though it was a really poor performance a week ago. And where's the other? His teammate, John Mechie at 43. There was, Slayton. But yeah, Tinsley is the obvious one that really, really stands out for me as someone that I could absolutely get to. But other than that, there's not a ton, which is why when you catch all those great tight ends at 4K or less, that's far more appealing to me.
I think Tinsley is really interesting. I think we might have even mentioned him at the top of the show. 3,100. And so if T. Higgins doesn't play, now Tinsley didn't get any targets last week, but if T. Higgins doesn't play, Tinsley in the game prior against Baltimore got 9 targets. Now he was extremely inefficient, which wasn't completely his fault, but he caught 2 of 9 targets, but he still got 9 targets. That doesn't mean that's going to happen this time. I actually think Tinsley's really talented. I love him at the catch point, contested catches, things of that nature. Didn't show up 2 weeks ago, but I think Tinsley could have that game that we might be thinking Gesicki is going to get some of those targets or Yoshivas. It could be Tinsley getting a lot of those targets too. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say there, if Higgins is in and active, I would probably simply pivot to Yoshivas at 4,100. If Higgins is out, I would very clearly play Tinsley. Okay.
Love it. Let's get to our cheat sheets and our top 3 at each position. Meg, I'll start us off because we're on the same thing. I will say you put this in first, but I was going to put this in anyway. So I'm going to give you credit for this, but Jackson Dart, Theo Johnson is going to be my stack. But again, I'm willing to play Jackson Dart solo, just like Mike suggested. I'm willing to play Jackson Dart with 2 stack partners. And I'm also willing to play him with any of Theo Johnson, Darius Slayton, or Wan'Dale Robinson. Really like that stack. I don't mind Mariota to Terry McLaurin either. Just throwing that out there. In terms of just that game, I think the Mariota side could be okay as well. Chalk buy is going to be Jamar Chase. I'm in on Jamar Chase at 8,100. My chalk fade is JSN. Mike talked about it. I don't like fading JSN, but again, I can't play all these players. JSN, Puka Nacua. I felt like I had to decide between those two, and I'm going to go with JSN. My contrarian play isn't super contrarian because he is getting, I think, in that 10 to 12% range. Let's see how it ends up, but I'm going to play Zay Flowers in this game. So give me Zay at 6,300. Value play is going to be DK at 4,300. We just talked about it. I like having a run back in that San Francisco 49ers game at home. All right, Meg, talk to me about your cheat sheet.
Sure. Yeah. Jackson Dart, Darius Slayton, but absolutely willing to add Theo Johnson to that. I like that call. Chalk buy, I put Christian McCaffrey. I was actually, if I'm being honest, I was going to put Derrick Henry. I was seeing him more in that 12% range. So that didn't seem super chalky to me. I wouldn't be surprised if by Sunday Henry is chalkier, and I'm still fine with that. So Christian McCaffrey and Derrick Henry for me. Chalk fade for me is Woody Marks. I know he's got a great matchup, especially if he's in and Chubb's out, but I'm going to fade Woody Marks at high ownership. Contrarian for me is I'm going to go back to the Stephon Diggs against the Bills, playing for the AFC East. So Stephon Diggs is looking to be very contrarian. And as we talked about, that game was hard to parse out. And Diggs may be the one play that I'm going to go to there. Value play is, of course, Isaiah Likely. It is a tight end funnel against the Bengals, and I'm going to keep going to it. He should have had a touchdown on Thanksgiving night.
All right, let's do top 3 at each position. Mike, you're going to start at the quarterback position, and I'll mention one of your players is Jackson Dart, who we mentioned would be a great cash game play.
Yes, love Jackson Dart. We'll probably have the most exposure to him, but also going to list Matthew Stafford and Joe Burrow. Very much want the Stafford side in this one. I think Detroit's going to do enough that they're going to be throwing a lot. And because I won't be playing Devontae, I like the double stack route of going Puka Nacua and Colby Parkinson with Stafford. So I like him. He'll be a spend, but I don't know how popular. I know it'll be a very high scoring game, but you still got Lamar, you still got all these other guys here. So the 7K is a pretty big price point. I think he may go just a touch under owned for the game environment. And then Joe Burrow, I think he's going to go out there and sling the football around and compete against Baltimore. I think the game's going to be very competitive. So give me Burrow, Dart, and Stafford.
All right. Top 3 running backs.
Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, both just buy low candidates here. The one that'll surprise a lot of people is probably Quinshon Judkins. I still don't think that the Chicago Bears are a very good run defense. I think that they're improving in the passing game. I think the road environment in Chicago this time of year is going to be not super easy for Shedeur, but I do expect Judkins to be involved in the passing game. What I'm looking for here is just a few big chunk plays that I think he's very good for in this matchup. So Henry, Barkley, and Judkins.
And as far as cash game guys, like Saquon obviously would be one of them. Would either of these two be over like Derrick Henry or Quinshon Judkins? And I know it's expensive, but would you be able to put them over like a Jahmyr Gibbs for cash?
Yes.
Okay.
Personally, I know that Gibbs, we've seen the 3 touchdowns many times now, and it's scary. I can all but assure you that a cash game core for me would start with Jackson Dart, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley.
Okay. Wide receiver.
Which would allow me at wide receiver to play, if I wanted to, both Puka Nacua and Amon-Ra St. Brown in that same lineup. And that is the route that I would prefer to go. Third would be Wan'Dale Robinson. Yes, it's a big price point. Think Michael Wilson. I think a little bit of the field will go back to Wilson at 6,600. I'd prefer to pivot to Wan'Dale here. I think the target volume is going to be there. And again, if we get news like T. Higgins is out, like this is very clearly going to be Tinsley at 3,100. If T. Higgins is out and we get to play $3,100 Tinsley, you're just going to be able to load up on whoever you want on this slate. So these are the 3 for now, but it's really Nacua and Amon-Ra.
And we talked about 2 tight end lineups, which will also allow you to play a lot of these big ticket guys. Talk to me about your 3 favorite tight ends.
Colby Parkinson, Mike Gesicki, and Isaiah Likely. Gesicki and Likely in the same game work very nicely if you want to play a Joe Burrow kind of a lineup. Parkinson, 3,200. Like him a lot. I really do believe Stafford likes him. Part of this is just game environment overall. I think it's going to be extremely high scoring. I think the total, the highest of the year in the NFL, is absolutely warranted. Davante Adams is hurt, and he's dealing with the hamstring at 33 years old, essentially. I think Parkinson is the one who benefits a lot, particularly in the high value area of the field. So yeah, Parkinson, 3,200. I'll be playing 2 tight ends in pretty much every build, probably 100% of them.
So let me ask you this. If T. Higgins is out, do you play the 2 tight end lineup with Mike Gesicki, or do you actually go to Mitchell Tinsley?
I'll probably have both of them, to be honest with you. Because if he's out, like, yeah, I'll have Tinsley and Gesicki, whether or not I have Burrow. It would still be a Dart lineup, because then I would literally be playing Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka Nacua, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, or some combination with like say Wan'Dale as a receiver and Jahmyr Gibbs instead of, Barkley. If Tinsley is in play, he's going to be the equivalent of a free square at 3,100 for me.
Okay. And by the way, for those of you that were like, hey, he's saying Devontae's 32, but is essentially 33. He's being pretty casual with essentially. What does he even mean by that? Well, he means his birthday's in 13 days. So that's why he said it just like that. So good stuff, Mike. His birthday's on December 24th. So 13 days. Maybe we'll have, if he's healthy, maybe we'll have a narrative lineup to build around Davante Adams right here on FFT DFS. Tonight, Meg, we've got the Falcons on the road. Both teams just been terrible. This is going to end in a tie. I'm calling it right now. It ends in a tie, overtime, and then it ends in a tie. Falcons and the Bucks. I think we're looking at, there we go. Thank you, Matt. Matt's amazing. 4.5 point spread, 44.5 point total. Any plays in this game? Any leans? What do you like, Meg?
I don't know. I believe Mike Evans will be back, but probably in a
looks like
very limited snap count situation. But I do lean the Buccaneers here. They're the better team. In my mind, they deserve to win the South. They've just dealt with a lot of injuries this year. So I'm going to go Buccaneers cover at home.
Okay. By the way, I'm just seeing Josh Jacobs unlikely to practice as of 20 minutes ago on Thursday. I wonder what that's about, but something to look into. Mike, I know we gave out some plays on the early edge this morning. I gave out Chris Godwin over 3.5 receptions. I do expect Mike Evans to play. Even if he does, though, I think Godwin without Cade Otton, because it doesn't look like Cade Otton's going to play. I think Godwin in the middle of the field is going to be there for some quick throws. So I like 4 receptions or more. Mike, what do you like in this game?
I like the Atlanta Falcons to punt on their opening drive at plus 105.
Let's go.
There are so many range of outcomes in this game. It's so difficult to project. I know we had a lot of total questions early, particularly. I'm not playing any first quarter or first half totals. I think it's a must-win game for the Bucs. I know that it's not mathematically because the only team that matters for them is the Panthers, and they play the Panthers twice in the final 3 weeks of the season. So those games obviously are the must-win games and the ones that matter. However, they have a big opportunity if they win this game to kind of separate themselves just a touch. So I think it's a must-win game for them. Not going to bet it, though.
What a crazy year where we're in week 15 and we're talking about, well, the Panthers, that's the important game because the Panthers can still win the division. And meanwhile, Kansas City's on the outside looking in, the Ravens on the outside looking in, barely looking in, by the way, the Bengals with Joe Burrow on the outside looking in. And we're talking about Phillip Rivers, maybe playing quarterback for the Colts this weekend. I mean, the NFL is just such, it's the best drama on TV. We hope you enjoy listening to some of us talk about NFL right here on FFT DFS. Get some green screens, get in our contest, our $5 contest, again, in the YouTube podcast description. And if you like this show, I saw some really good comments. Greg Goose Hayes, we really appreciate that, talking about how much you like watching the show live. If you haven't already, go to whether it's Spotify or Apple, and rate the podcast. Give us 5 stars, say a few words about the podcast. That would be really nice. Always helps us out. But appreciate everybody being in here. We'll do it again next Thursday. So make sure you join us at 11 o'clock. On behalf of Meg, on behalf of Matt, and on behalf of Mike, the M&Ms. My name is Sia Nejad. This is FFT DFS. See you next time, everybody.